Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. We appreciate you and your time in joining us today. We're going to get started here in a minute while we let everybody join. So thank you so much for coming today. We are very excited to get to spend the next hour and a half with you. We're going to let everybody get logged into the Zoom webinar. As we wait, I thought I would share some fantastic information regarding the reach of this P-3 webinar. So we are excited to share that over 2,000 and actually close to 3,000 people have registered for this webinar. This impressive number includes participants from a wide range of programs, such as California school districts, county offices of education, private preschool childcare sites, state preschool and Head Start programs, charter schools, tribes, military programs, early care and education partners, private elementary schools, higher education institutions, large nonprofit organizations, foundations, federations, consultants, other government offices, a variety of city staff, private industries, job training organizations, law offices, libraries. We also have registrants from Maine, Virginia, Oregon, and as far as Belfast, United Kingdom, making this truly a global event. We are excited and grateful to be informing early learning professionals worldwide. So now, as I notice that we are getting a little bit of a leveling off of the participants, we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar. Next slide, please. Welcome to the California Department of Education's Best Practices for Supporting Educators to Address Children's Behaviors That Challenge Adults webinar. We are very excited to be here with you today. I am Shanna Burkholz-Vasquez, and I am one of the presenters for today's webinar. We have a few logistics to run through before we get started. We will be taking Q&A, question and answers, in the Q&A feature. So please feel free to communicate with us there and ask questions if needed. We'll do our best to address them. We will also have the slide deck available to those who would like a copy of this webinar. That will be posted on the California Educators Together website, as well as CDE in the upcoming few days. We are also recording the webinar and hope to have that posted in the near future. I will now pass it to Sarah Neville Morgan. Next slide.
Thanks so much, Shanna. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for the Best Practices for Supporting Educators to Address Children's Behavior That Challenge Adults webinar. This is our 18th edition of the Opportunities for All Branch Pre-Kindergarten through 3rd grade, or P3 webinar series at the California Department of Education. I would like to begin by introducing myself and today's speakers. My name, as Shanna said, is Sarah Neville Morgan, and I'm a Deputy Superintendent with the California Department of Education over the Opportunities for All branch. We're so happy to have you join us today. Along with me, you'll also hear from Stephen Profiter, Director of our Early Education Division, as well as Shanna Burkholz-Vasquez, who you just saw, our Administrator of CDE's Universal Pre-Kindergarten Implementation and Support Office. Next slide, please. So why do relationships matter for learning? During today's webinar, we will be sharing various resources in the chat. In case you're not able to save them from the chat, we want to let you know that the same resources will be included in the after webinar resource email. Before we begin today's topic, I also want to ground us in our why. When it comes to relationships and learning, why is it important to build supportive and nurturing relationships with children in P3 learning environments? And how are relationships related to children's behavior? We know from ample research, as well as lived experience, that relationships matter. In order for young children to learn, they need to feel safe and secure in their environment so they can explore and try new things, so they can experiment and feel comfortable in the face of challenges or even failures. At the California Department of Education, we know P-3 educators are able to form the kind of positive relationships with children that set the foundation for learning, and that supporting these relationships requires both gathering information about the quality of existing relationships and supporting educators to stay in a continuous growth mindset to create, maintain, and continually develop these relationships with young children. California is making strides toward this goal in our California State Preschool program by implementing universal use of the Classroom Assessment Scoring System, or CLASS. As many of you may know, class observation is a new requirement for our state preschool, as outlined in our Management Bulletin 2310. CLASS is a powerful tool. It allows us to assess and enhance the quality of adult-child interactions, particularly with a focus on emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. The CDE is focused on using information about the quality of teacher-child interaction to enhance equity and ensure all children have access to quality learning opportunities and supportive relationships with their teachers. Next slide, please. It's clear that challenging behavior is a popular topic amongst educators. Although this topic is often approached by educators as managing and responding to the behavior of children, we must also acknowledge and address the role of adults' behavior, such as managing our own emotions and biases, and how those behaviors can either diffuse or escalate challenging situations. Emotion regulation is a complex and difficult task, influenced by our personal history, our culture, and personalities. As educators, in order to form positive, responsive relationships with children, we must attend to our own well-being and emotions. Luckily, there are numerous resources to support educators in the process of examining their own emotions and how they may be impacting their behavior and reactions to children's behaviors. For example, there are resources on the Teachstone website that can be accessed for free to support this work. We'll provide a link to one such resource, Reframing Challenging Behavior, 3 tips that emphasize how our response matters, in our chat. This resource discusses tips for managing adult emotions, such as asking yourself, what can you do? What can I do in the moment? Instead, to connect with the child rather than disconnect. Creating a safe space, such as a soft, calming space in the classroom or program, where children are safe to go and release strong feelings. Acknowledging feelings which reassures a child's connection with you by helping them feel understood in the moment. And reflecting by taking time to reflect on how you manage your own emotional triggers and any potential biases you may have. It is crucial to remember that all behavior is communication and has a purpose. As educators, we have a significant role to play in meeting children where they are and understanding their needs. This resource can help educators meet the needs of all children. Next slide. I also want to ground us all in some additional background about policies and practices the California Department of Education is putting in place to limit the use of exclusionary discipline in response to children's behaviors. Addressing the use of exclusionary discipline is a long-standing priority of the CDE and of our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond. In 2021, he issued state guidance to support the implementation of new state laws on discipline. The guidance emphasized that suspension can do more harm than good for children's learning and behavior. Sending a student home does not address the root cause of a student's behavior. Instead, it removes them from the learning environment, thereby limiting their opportunities to learn, grow, and thrive. Suspension and expulsion practices are even more prevalent in preschool. In 2016, the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights found that children in state-funded preschool programs were expelled at 3 times the rate of students in K-12. This is extremely concerning, especially since we know that attending a high-quality preschool program can set children on a path for success in school and beyond. State guidance provides numerous resources to support school districts, schools, programs, and individual educators to reverse the reality that our most vulnerable students are disproportionately removed from their classes by replacing punitive discipline practices with targeted student support. We're providing a link to the web pages where you can find these resources in the chat. I'd also like to make sure that we provide a resource to our Boys of Color book, which really dives deeply into numerous things in this area. And now I'm going to pass the presentation to Steve, who will share some research about how exclusionary discipline practices differentially impact children of color and share some resources to help P-3 programs and schools address the issue. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Sarah. So research shows that exclusionary discipline practices have a disproportionate impact on preschool boys and on Black and Brown students, students with disabilities, and other children who get marginalized. Preschool boys are suspended and expelled much more often than preschool girls. Likewise, Black preschoolers are 3.6 times as likely to receive out-of-school suspension as white preschoolers. Black boys are excluded through suspension and expulsion at the highest rates, and Black girls are the only group of girls that are disproportionately suspended. This trend extends into K-12 settings where in California, in 2019-20, Black and African American students made up 5.4% of public school students, but comprised 15% of suspensions. In addition to our Black and African American boys, we know that American Indian and Alaska Native boys and multiracial boys are also suspended and expelled at higher rates than their peers. Evidence shows that this is not because of worse behavior, but because of harsher treatment in response to the same behaviors. Next slide, please. Addressing bias of educators is an important strategy for reducing suspension and expulsions, especially for children from our communities who are most marginalized. Responding effectively and equitably to children's behavior requires that educators be self-aware, examine their own biases, and actively work towards addressing them. The CDE created the resource, which Sarah had mentioned moments ago, Creating Equitable Early Learning Environments for Young Boys of Color, which provides readers with knowledge, practical strategies, and tools they can begin using right away to interrupt harmful beliefs and practices, and to take actions that make an immediate and positive difference for the boys of color in their programs and schools. This resource talks about the concept of creating brave spaces in our early learning and elementary programs to support educators in their work to address bias. The CDE has hosted webinars in the past to open the dialogue around these brave spaces, and we're exploring ways to continue those conversations through our P3 webinar series. Likewise, Teachstone has created free webinars to support educator self-reflection on how to improve cultural responsiveness and use anti-racist, anti-bias practices. The CDE strongly advocates for it, and in some cases, as described in the California State Preschool Program Management Bulletin 23-08, requires the replacement of exclusionary discipline practices, such as suspension and expulsion, with strategies and best practices that support children and allow them to remain in the learning environment. The CDE is likewise committed to supporting every school to be a P3 ready school, meaning that every school should be ready for the children that walk through their doors and their many diverse needs. As educators, your role is to create welcoming, supportive environments where children's interests are valued and their relationships and their individual needs are met. By creating these environments and forming positive relationships with children, you are providing all children with a foundation of social emotional intelligence that supports their ability to regulate their own emotions, allowing them to learn, grow, and thrive. Next slide, please. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing two wonderful guest speakers from the Orange County Department of Education, who will be providing an overview of children's behaviors that challenge adults and offering strategies to help educators support their students as well as themselves. Our first guest speaker is Catherine Darker. Catherine has over 24 years of experience in education. She serves as a coordinator on the early learning team at the Orange County Department of Education, supports the local quality rating improvement system, and teaches child development courses at 2 local colleges. Catherine contributed significantly to developing Orange County's early childhood pyramid module trainings and is dedicated to empowering the early learning workforce with expertise in social, emotional, and positive behavior support. Our second guest speaker of the day is Dr. Elida Garcia. Dr. Elida has an extensive background in early childhood education, special education, and early literacy initiatives. She has worked as a school psychologist, grants administrator, and director. She has a doctorate degree in educational leadership and policy from Pepperdine University. Dr. Elida is passionate about supporting positive learning experiences for children of all ages and providing relevant information to teachers and families to help them facilitate optimal learning conditions. Next slide, please, and over to the Orange County Department of Education team.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and we are honored to be able to share some information with you today. I'm going to be presenting a brief overview of the foundational elements in addressing children's behavior. My colleague, Catherine Darker, will then review some strategies that can be easily implemented when working with children. Whenever we're looking at children's behavior, we should always look at children's development. There is always an interplay between children's development and their behavior, as you can see on the graphic on the slide. Where the child is in their development plays a significant role in the behaviors that they exhibit. It is important to take the developmental stages and skills into consideration whenever we set behavioral or readiness expectations. We want to ask ourselves, are the expectations that we set in line with what children typically do at this age? We also always want to ask, are the expectations that we're setting in line with this particular child's skill set at this point in time? For example, we may see that a child's language development skills, either receptive or expressive, may be at a different level than expected. We often see that the child will find different ways to express their needs. It may be more physical or emotional methods of communication that they're using. Next slide, please. There are some key factors that influence children's development and thus their behavior. Keep in mind that there are always other factors that may influence children, especially the influence of the family. Also, things that are happening in the community. The children's cultural experiences are also major influences in their lives. For the sake of today's time and focus, we're going to talk a little bit more about these 4 factors that are on the slide, which are significant in the learning setting. First, when we're talking about relationships and interactions with adults and peers, we know that they make a difference. Catherine will be talking a little bit more about relationships in a bit. But in talking about relationships, we should ask, does the child feel like adults want to see them when they walk through that door? Does the child feel like they have friends who want to play with them, who are happy to see each other? We already know that providing play experiences is very beneficial for children's learning, especially at this young age. So are there plenty of opportunities for children to play in order to problem solve, practice their interpersonal skills, and use their imagination? CDE has shared many useful resources that promote play. Earlier this year, we had the P-3 webinar on play, and the wonderful publication, The Powerful Role of Play, are always very useful resources. Under the environment, is the learning environment favorable for children to be able to think, listen, talk, and play? Look around that environment. Do you find that it's overstimulating with too many visuals, too much noise? Is the environment organized with predictable routines? Or does it seem a bit chaotic because there may be unidentified learning centers? We also know that interactive and physical activity made a major factor in children being able to follow instructions and be able to interact. Ask yourselves, does the daily schedule allow the children to be interactive, physically active throughout the day? We know that being physically active stimulates brain activity, which then helps children be able to focus better, and then they're better able to solve problems. Next slide, please. We should expect that addressing children's behavior is always dynamic. It's always going to be ever-changing. It's an ongoing process. When we design behavioral and emotional supports, we should focus on helping the child learn ways to handle situations versus expecting the issue to be completely resolved. Recently, we had the pleasure of hearing Jimmy Casas, who's the author of Culturize, speak, and he explained that we should strive for better results rather than trying to fix it. This dynamic approach will help us set more realistic expectations. And when we set more realistic expectations, the mind shift helps reduce burnout for both staff and the family. Next slide, please. When we frame supports as a continuum, then we ensure that the behavioral supports are responsive to the child's needs. Since children's needs change over time, we want to utilize a tiered support model. A tiered support approaches addresses the children's individual needs, knowing that some children may need additional support in the different skills area and at different times. The tiered support approach can be implemented pretty much across all different learning settings. You could see it in school classrooms, center-based early ed programs, and even in family childcare homes. The different support strategies that we're going to review more closely in just a bit are all based on the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations, which offers an array of online resources. We highly recommend that you take time to explore the resources. Next slide, please. We know that it takes a village to ensure that children's needs are supported. The responsibility for identifying and implementing supports should not be the sole responsibility of the teacher. We also know that the first step in building a cohesive support system begins with building a partnership with the family. We want to have that open communication, be able to build that trust, in order to be able to work together. Then there needs to be a shared responsibility among the teacher, other teaching staff, administration, support staff, and family. We want to be able to support that whole child. Look at what other assistance should be examined and identified as necessary, not only for the child, but also for the family. What other services, referrals may be made for those family needs. For the teacher, those supports may include opportunities for them to self-reflect, identify ways to self-care. The publication, Young Boys of Color, that was already mentioned in the introduction, has a section on educator self-care strategies. I highly recommend that you take some time to look at that, because we cannot forget that a major part of this equation to help children with their behavior are the educators that are in that classroom, and the family, and anybody else who comes into that classroom environment. Also, we want to look at the class community itself. There may also need some supports for those children all in the classroom to better understand that all of us do things a little differently. You can go to the next slide, please. In looking at the concept of village working together as a team, we want to support children's needs, but there needs to be certain structures in place for successful implementation. Structures such as for the team to meet on a regular basis requires designated time and space. The joint planning process should also include teaching staff, support providers, and family. Depending on the type of that learning setting, the team configuration may look a little different, but it should always include other adults than just the teacher. In some cases, the team may initially begin with the teacher and the family, and then other support staff joins the team. We should always strive to reference the child's developmental skills as part of the process. And overall, we want to ensure that the strategies and tools designed and implemented should be tailored to children's developmental age and needs. With all of these factors, keep in mind that they set the basis for identifying and implementing supports. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Catherine, who will review some more specific behavioral support strategies. Next slide, please.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alita, for walking us through that continuum of support and the team approach, because it really does take a village to help change the narrative around behavior. So to begin, it is crucial that we shift our mindset and rethink our perspective on behavior. When we were asked to speak on this webinar, we were so happy to see that the title of the webinar was Addressing Children's Behavior That Challenges Adults. So as the adults in children's lives, we should interpret their behaviors as challenges for us, rather than labeling the children themselves as challenging. When we attach labels to children, we stay focused on the negative, and then we're not focused on their strengths, their potential, and the context of it. We may make them feel different or isolated, and then not give them the support that they need. It's actually the frequency, the duration, and the intensity of the behavior that should determine our level of support. Next slide, please. So let's get into some strategies. The first strategy should always be building relationships. You may have heard this oftentimes, but this really is a preventative strategy. In fact, what research has showed us is that the quality of adult-child relationships highly motivates children towards cooperation and responsibility. Children are actually motivated to cooperate with adults' requests and standards, partly because of their emotional attachments to those adults and their desire to maintain positive relationships with them. So what that means is that the more a child feels connected with you, the more they're going to want to cooperate with you. And preschool children actively seek to cooperate with adults' instructions in order to obtain their approval. They want to be seen as helpful, constructive, and classroom contributors, and the ones that aren't want to be. So when you've taken the time to build those relationships with children consistently over time, you will have shown them that you have their best interests at heart and that they can trust you. And when you ask them to make a change or make a positive choice, they are more likely to do it. And then teachers can model and facilitate friendly, responsible behavior that shows respect for other people, program materials, because what we model is what we get. Next slide, please. So knowing that relationships are always a first strategy, a strategy that you can use to help build relationships is to incorporate the child's interests. For example, if you notice a specific time of day when a child requires additional support, you'll want to first observe the child to identify their interests and sources of pleasure and make note of it. And then you'll want to intentionally incorporate activities that align with their interests during that time of day. As adults, we also like to personalize our workspaces, our homes, and things that we like, pictures of loved ones, candles, snacks, etc. We do this to enhance our day and our work, and it's the same for you. So when you incorporate the interests of a child who needs extra support, you're doing a couple of things. First, you're establishing a connection and rapport that fosters that sense of trust and understanding. You are also, thank you. Okay. I think my sound was not great. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, everybody. You're also demonstrating empathy and respect for the child's individuality, which in turn will help reduce resistance and defensiveness. And then lastly, when your activities align with students' interests, the child is more likely to be motivated and engaged in positive, productive behavior. And then, of course, you want to make sure that these preferences adhere to your classroom policies and practices. Next slide, please. Okay. And then our next strategy for building relationships is peer buddies. It's important for us to also consider relationships that children have with each other that helps foster positive behavior. So this next strategy of peer buddies, peer buddy can assist a child who struggles with transitions, remembering rules, and then needing peer attention. So that first step is to choose a child to be a peer buddy that engages in conversations with other children, follows instructions effectively, and then possibly shares those similar interests with the other child. You want to make sure that you are, sorry, my screen is all messed up. You want to make sure that you are setting those time limits with them, letting them know how long they have to help each other, outline those expectations. What are they going to be helping their peer with? You want to monitor that play, and then you want to make sure that you debrief afterwards with the children. Okay. The next slide, please. We want to shift our thinking a little bit now, and we want to remember that all behavior is communicative, right? Which means that challenging behavior is sending us a message, and it's communicating a message to us. So, however, young children lack the life experience necessary to clearly articulate their needs. And so we want to remember that the children that most of you work with have only been on this earth for 36 months, 48 months, and that is not a lot of time to practice communicating their needs. In some instances, when children don't have the language skills that are necessary to communicate appropriately, they will resort to using challenging behavior as a means of communication. And then on the flip side, a child that has the language to communicate what they need, but has limited social skills, or they learn that challenging behavior will result in meeting their needs, may also use challenging behavior as a means of communication. And so we have to provide children with numerous opportunities during the day to practice processing and expressing how they're feeling, because progress only comes with practice. Next slide, please. So how can we support children expressing their emotions? Children need consistent but diverse methods to fully express their emotions, and we can add to their toolbox. So it is important to keep in mind that some children need to actually do something with their feelings, and we can help facilitate that emotional release for them. We can help them answer that question, what can I do with my feelings? And then we should help them identify safe and acceptable ways for them to convey these strong emotions, both in the classroom and at home. Next slide, please. So when we help guide the release and expression of emotions, we're actually helping children build emotional literacy, which is the ability to understand how they're feeling and then express it in a healthy way. And what research has shown us is that children with a strong foundation in emotional literacy are more focused, they have greater academic achievement, they are healthier, they tolerate frustration better, get into fewer fights, engage in less destructive behavior, they are less lonely, and they are less impulsive. So with this understanding, it is clear that we need to teach children about their emotions and then how to express them in a healthy way. Next slide, please. Our first emotional literacy strategy is to help children write their feelings in a feelings journal. So first, you'll want to spend one-on-one time with the child that might be struggling. And then next, you'll want to encourage them to draw or write whatever inspires them. And then you'll want to engage with them by asking about their journal entries and then carefully recording their responses. So this photo on the right on the slide was shared by a teacher that I coached who faced challenges with a child exhibiting behaviors like running away and refusing to participate. And after trying various strategies unsuccessfully, she reflected and chose to prioritize building a relationship with this child. She chose a time of day where she had a few minutes to spend with him and then initiated a daily feelings journal practice where the child drew pictures and expressed emotions, feeling upset with his family dynamics. And so what the picture says here is he said, "This is my mom's boyfriend and he is mad because I love my mom. This was the present for my mom, but he broke it first." So through this very simple practice, the teacher gained so many valuable insights into what the child was experiencing that she might not have had she not incorporated this practice, and she fostered that bond between the two of them. As a result, the child became more capable of expressing their feelings and ultimately led to positive changes in his behavior. Really remarkable to see the teacher was so happy and then in tears by the end of the year. So it's important to also note that this strategy should be used consistently over time as possibly a daily one-on-one connection time and not just when the child is expressing strong emotion. Next slide, please. Through this practice, a child learns to explore their own feelings and then understand the reasons behind these emotions and how they affect their life. The child learns to monitor moments of intense emotions and identify the associated feelings. They learn to articulate their emotions and feelings more clearly. Journaling is a great way for children to express how they are feeling without having to perfectly articulate their exact emotions. And then this method also helps teachers get to know their students on a deeper level and encourages children to share things that they might not normally share. Next slide, please. Our second emotional literacy strategy is using children's literature and books. So exploring characters' experiences and emotions and stories helps children relate to and empathize with the characters and gain insight into their own feelings. And then when we have discussions about the characters' emotions, we provide a safe space for children to express their own feelings and learn appropriate ways to manage them. This can be done in large group settings or with individual children. Most teachers in classrooms already incorporate reading into their daily routine. So imagine also helping children express and process their emotions in order to effectively manage them at the same time. Next slide, please. So with the understanding that we must first build a relationship with children to influence positive behavior and that all behavior is sending a message, but some children may need assistance in communicating this message, let's take a look at 3 specific behaviors and strategies that will help decrease these behaviors. We're going to start with aggression. So what might this look like? We know that this is not an exhaustive list. We're just going to follow through with one example. So in this example, it may look like hitting or pushing. Okay. What is the desired behavior? It's very important that we switch our focus from looking at the behavior that we want to stop and begin to focus on the behavior that we want to see and foster. And so in this example, it is expressing emotions in a healthy way versus hitting or pushing to express their emotions. And we know that children are always trying to communicate something. So what might the child be trying to communicate in this example? They may be saying, "I feel frustrated." And lastly, what is the adult concern? There is usually a fear or concern that teachers have that influences how they react to a particular behavior. In this case, a teacher may worry that someone will get hurt and then in turn react by reprimanding the child for using physical aggression to get their needs met. Next slide, please. We do want to acknowledge that if the intensity of the aggressive behavior escalates, first and foremost, you'll want to focus on the safety of the child and the other children in the classroom. You want to make sure that you remove triggers or anything that can cause harm. You should stay close to the child and stay calm and wait until the child has started to de-escalate before intervening. And then respond by remaining calm, helping the child identify their feelings and giving them short, clear instructions on how to calm down. You want to remember that a meltdown is not bad behavior. This is the time when the child is so overwhelmed and overloaded that they have literally lost their words. They are not connected to their thinking brain and they cannot access any reasoning or impulse control in that moment. This is a time that they need you to share in the calm and help bring them back down. So one strategy that you can use to de-escalate a child that may be having a meltdown is to have them look up and then look down and have them do that 3 times. If you can successfully get them to do this, they cannot physiologically be in the same state. Next slide, please. So we want to remember that the behavior we want to see in this scenario is for children to manage their strong emotions by expressing them in a healthy way instead of a physically aggressive way. So it's very important for children to help children learn that any emotion is fine. It is what they do with that emotion that matters. We often want to stop children from feeling negative feelings such as anger or sadness. And actually, we want them to know that any feeling is fine, is how we choose to express those feelings that matter. So it is okay to be mad. It is not okay to hurt yourself, others, or our property. We want children to learn how to identify those feelings and then express them, and how to recognize strong feelings in themselves and in their bodies. For example, when I'm getting mad, my body feels tight or my face feels warm. And these skills of identifying those feelings are built over time. So just like we mentioned, it's not something that will just happen by telling children one time. We need to intentionally teach, practice, and model these skills for children for them to eventually master them. Because there is a difference between between teaching and just telling. Next slide, please. So our first expressing emotions strategy is called push a wall. So first you will want to make hand and feet cutouts and place the hand cutouts on the wall and the feet cutouts on the ground. And then you will show children when they are calm how to push their hands against a wall and stomp their feet on the ground when they need to release energy and calm down. It's important to practice these techniques when children are calm so that they will remember that they have a healthy alternative to choose when they start feeling upset. And when you see a child getting upset, just gently remind them to use these techniques instead of pushing or kicking. And whenever a child uses these techniques to calm down, you want to make sure that you acknowledge their effort for handling their emotions well. And this affirmation will hopefully reinforce that positive behavior. Next slide, please. So with this strategy of push a wall, the child learns to release their emotions in a controlled manner, which in turn promotes self-regulation and a sense of relaxation and well-being. They learn to channel their emotions into physical activities that don't pose a risk to themselves or their peers, and they become more aware of their feelings and how they manifest in their bodies. So this also helps children maintain a safe and respectful environment for everyone involved as they develop empathy towards others. Next slide, please. The next behavior that we'll consider is defiance. So what might this look like? This could look like refusing to follow instructions, which is very challenging when you are trying to manage the flow of your classroom. But what is that desired behavior that we would like to see? And ultimately, we want children to participate successfully in the activities or schedule that you've set forth. And what might the child be trying to communicate in this scenario? They might be trying to communicate that they don't like or want to go to the next activity, or that they don't understand what to do next. So when you match a child that doesn't understand what they're supposed to do with an adult that expects to see action, the result is often behavior that is challenging, such as tantrums or crying or aggressive behavior. And then alternatively, children who understand what is expected of them are more likely to display appropriate behavior. So what is the adult concern? In this case, the teacher may worry about not having control of the classroom, and oftentimes teachers take it personal if the children are not following directions. Next slide, please. So our first strategy to help children participate successfully is the first then strategy. You can create first then cards or a first then board, similar to the picture that you see on the slide. You will need photos of both of the undesirable activity and the desirable activity. And it is best to use photos of the child being successful so that they can see themselves completing the task. After you create your cards or your board, you'll first give that verbal instruction, such as first wash your hands and then eat snack. You'll point to the visuals on the first then board or cards. Wait patiently for the child to process what you are asking them to do. And then when they follow that first prompt, acknowledge them for their efforts. So you want to keep in mind that this strategy can be used preventatively. So before, if you anticipate that the child may have trouble following an instruction, during, when they are refusing to participate, and then also after, as a way to reflect on the positive choices that they made. And then if a student doesn't respond immediately, just continue pointing to the visuals without speaking them and giving them a few minutes to process. This strategy is actually good for all ages. I used this strategy when I was an infant toddler teacher. I had a 15-month-old toddler who didn't want to change her diaper because she was reading a book. But when I said, first change your diaper, then you can read your book, she stopped crying, gave me her book, laid down to change her diaper. I acknowledged her effort, followed through with my promise, and gave her her book back. So that was just a verbal reminder. And if it had progressed to a daily challenge for me, I would have given her visuals. Next slide, please. With this first then strategy, the child gains a sense of responsibility and accountability. Children become more self-reliant as they learn to follow instructions and complete tasks independently in order to access that desired activity. They learn how to follow sequential instructions, which encourages task completion. And then they also learn to delay gratification and wait for a desired activity, so that promotes patience and then impulse control. So when we link desired activities to completing specific tasks, this motivates children to follow through and complete tasks that they may otherwise resist or avoid. And when we give them clear expectations and a structured approach to meeting those expectations, we help minimize power struggle and then ultimately promote cooperation in the classroom because the child clearly understands what to do. Next slide, please. Our second strategy for promoting successful participation is the use of visual environmental cues. As adults, we often use calendars, grocery lists, and to-do lists to help complete our tasks and then enhance our memory. And children can also benefit from these kinds of tools and reminders. Environmental cues can include things such as timers, pictures, visual schedules, sign-up sheets to provide clear visual cues about the timing and sequence of activities. So these things help children understand and anticipate transitions and then reduce anxiety and resistance. So unlike verbal instructions, a visual cue provides a child with an actual symbol that helps them see and then understand the words, the ideas, and expectations. Child is more likely to be successful when they're told specifically what they should do rather than what they should not do. And then environmental cues also support children with diverse learning styles and needs. It ensures that all students can access and then understand the expectations in the classroom. You'll see this photo on this slide is from a classroom that I coached. The teacher placed many visuals in each area of the classroom. And this particular picture is how many children should be in the house area at any given time. Their pictures are in keychains. They use solution cards and then a book about the expectations of the dramatic play area. Next slide, please. And then the next and final behavior that we're going to look at is conflict. So what might this look like? This could look like disagreements or arguing among children. And then what is that desired behavior that we want to see? We really just want our children to be able to solve problems, compromise with each other, and learn conflict resolution steps. What might the child be trying to communicate? In this scenario, they may be trying to tell us that they are still learning that others have different ideas than we do. And then what is the adult concern in this situation? That the children will not come to a resolution, which could lead to other behaviors and even aggression. Next slide, please. So when it comes to conflict resolution, it's almost a given that the children in your classrooms will encounter many obstacles throughout the day. However, when children are presented with these problems, they can find it difficult to think of alternative responses. And so they actually need a consistent, systematic approach to solve problems and conflicts. And it's really our job to intentionally teach them problem-solving steps, alternative solutions, and then how their solutions impact others. And so helping children to learn to solve problems also promotes a growth mindset. And the message becomes it's okay to have problems because we can learn ways to solve them. Next slide, please. The first strategy in teaching children conflict resolution steps is the traffic light strategy. So the traffic light is one way to present the problem-solving steps to young children in an easily understandable way. So for example, red light, stop and think about what happened to you. Yellow light, slow down. What can we do? Let's think of solutions. And then green light, let's go and give it a try. You want to make sure that you take time to explain the problem-solving steps before children encounter conflict, possibly during large group times or small group times. You can print out traffic lights and hang them throughout the classroom, making them accessible if problems should arise by placing them in a visible and reachable spot, like on the wall or in a basket. And you want to make sure that they're durable, laminating them, attaching them to cardboard, or covering them with clear contact paper so that they can be used over and over again. Because ultimately, your hope is that the children will learn these problem-solving steps and use them when they encounter a conflict so that you don't have to put out so many fires during the day. Next slide, please. The next strategy to teach conflict resolution steps is the solution card strategy. You can create cards of solutions for the children to choose from. Children need many options for solutions. You can have many options that suit your children and your classroom. So you want to place solution cards in a visible and reachable spot. You'll want to assist children in using these cards to find a solution. Of course, encourage and acknowledge them for their effort when they use the cards. And then this strategy can actually be used in tandem with the traffic light strategy. So for example, during the yellow or the slow down phase of the traffic light strategy, they can use these solution cards to find a solution. And similar to the traffic light, this strategy is clear, it's effective, and it's quick. Your children are given a sense of ownership and responsibility for their actions and choices. You can place them on a ring and have them strategically placed around the room, just like the traffic light, so that children have access to them anytime there's a problem and they need to find solutions. We had a teacher that had shared during a training that her classroom had made it a job, and one child got to go around being the problem solver of the day. So they got to wear the solution cards on a necklace, and anytime there was a conflict that arose, that child would go over with their cards and offer solutions. So a lot of super creative ways to think outside of the box, and her class just absolutely loved that job. So the picture on the screen here does come from the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovation that Alita had mentioned earlier, and we do encourage you to visit challengingbehavior.org, their website. They do have pre-made cards for you that you can download if you're interested. Next slide, please. And then when we give children options through solution cards or visuals, the child learns to take a moment to pause and regroup. They feel empowered to select a solution when they're faced with a problem. They can practice implementing their chosen solution, which enhances their skills and then prepares them to navigate future conflicts with confidence and resilience. So that concludes our discussion on strategies. We appreciate the opportunity to share these insights with you today, and we hope that you found them beneficial and applicable to your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Catherine and Dr. Garcia, for that outstanding presentation on ways to support educators in addressing children's behavior that challenge adults. The overview of the topic and the strategies that you both shared were practical, and I know that the participants found them useful, as I have been fielding the chat, and they have been already asking where they can get copies of some of the resources that you shared. So thank you so much. We're now going to be moving into our panel discussion. To start the next slide, we will introduce our moderator for today's discussion. Our moderator for today's discussion panel is Valentina Ware. Valentina Ware is a child development consultant in the UPK Implementation and Support Office within the Early Education Division at the California Department of Education. She has 19 years of experience working in early childhood education with children and families from birth to preschool. She will introduce our fantastic panelists who will be sharing their insights and expertise through the panel discussion. Thank you, Valentina, for joining us today. We're so excited for you to moderate this panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Shanna. I am truly honored to be here today moderating this crucial discussion on best practices for supporting educators to address children's behaviors that challenge adults. To begin introductions, I will first begin with Eliana Mancilla, or Ellie. Ellie is the Director of Learning and Development and is a seasoned child development professional with an extensive decade-long tenure specializing in early childhood education, family engagement, and professional development based in experiential learning, with an exceptional track record in mentoring early childhood practitioners to develop top-tier education for children ages 0 to 5. Ellie continues to mentor and guide young professionals in providing quality programming for early learners. Second, we have Jennifer Wright. Jennifer has over 20 years of experience as a speech and language pathologist and augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC specialist for the Placer County SELPA. And she has also helped to develop building the tiered supports for AAC project to support capacity building with the grant-funded project Open Access. She continues to share in the development of resources and professional development for supporting teams that serve students with communication challenges. Third, we have Andrew Crow. Andrew is the Deputy Director at Scholarship Prep, a network of charter schools focused on serving homeless and foster youth. He currently serves as the chair of the Native American Alumni Board of Notre Dame and as a board member of the Orange County Continuum of Care, a cross-agency elected board designed to end homelessness. Next slide, please. Thank you. Fourth, we have Rebecca Flores Acosta. Rebecca is a preschool teacher at Twin Rivers Unified School District. She has been in the field of early childhood education for 35 years, where she has worked in several roles. In addition to her teaching, Rebecca is also a certified preschool GLAD, or Guided Language Acquisition and Design trainer for Twin Rivers Unified School District. Fifth, we have Lisa Manges. Lisa is the preschool director at Faith Lutheran Preschool in Fair Oaks, California. She started her journey in early childhood education by assisting at the preschool where her daughter attended, as she added early childhood education units to her liberal arts and master's degree. Since then, much growth in some of her programs' best practices are due to the Raising Quality Together programs and coaching offered through the Sacramento County Office of Education, or SCOE. Her motto is building lifelong friendships. Finally, we have a very large panel today, and this is our last panelist before we start our conversation. We have Elaine Tam. Elaine is an inclusion transitional kindergarten teacher at San Francisco Unified School District, where she has taught for over 20 years. Her passion is teaching TK with a play-based philosophy on social and emotional development. Next slide, please. Now that we have introduced our panelists, I will review the questions that we will be asking them for our discussion panel before we take down the slides and begin our discussion. We have 5 questions to go through as well, everyone. Question 1, building positive relationships is crucial for student success and their sense of belonging. Could you share some relationship building strategies you found instrumental in creating a positive classroom program, or school environment? Question 2. How do you ensure your teaching is equitable for all children? For example, how do you utilize and reflect empathy in understanding and responding to children's behavior? Question 3. Students arrive in P-3 settings with a diverse set of strengths, skills, abilities, and needs. What strategies have you used to support all children to address their social, emotional needs, remove barriers to learning, and embed equity and inclusivity in the classroom? Next slide, please. Thank you. Question 4, as educators, we all have our hot buttons. Those things students do that challenge us. It's a shared experience, and it's okay to acknowledge it. Cornel West says, justice is what love looks like in public. When considering what this quote means to you, how have you addressed your own hot buttons to successfully continue supporting all students? And finally, question 5, partnering with parents and caregivers to develop or update plans to support their child can involve difficult conversations. These conversations can be especially difficult when dealing with a regression. What strategies would you or do you use to approach these types of conversations with compassion and to ensure that the parents and caregivers feel supported? We will now take down our slides to begin our discussion panel. All right. I see everyone's faces. I am so excited to see everyone's face on here and that everyone's camera is working appropriately. That is a celebration within itself. And I can tell you all agree with that as well because I see the smiling faces. So I will go ahead and start us off with the first question, which is, building positive relationships is crucial for student success and their sense of belonging. Could you share some relationship building strategies you found instrumental in creating a positive classroom, program, or school environment? And to start off this conversation, I would like to hand it over to Elaine. So Elaine, if you could unmute yourself and get us started.
Hi, good afternoon. I think that building relationship is very crucial. It begins on the very first day of school when you connect with your students and the families. I think hearing their stories or even them hearing my story helps build that relationship. And going through this webinar, it's like re-sparking all my like teaching pyramid tools in my tool belt, and it's like reminding me of like why I'm doing this in the classroom. So when you have that relationship with all the students, it reaches out to the parents, and from there you could actually see this community growing in your classroom, and it really helps with building this positive relationship with everyone in your classroom, and then it branches out to the classroom next door and then to the school community.
Thank you so much, Elaine. I really like how you touched on building out the school community because it's contagious, right? If your classroom's having fun, the other students are going to be peering possibly through your classroom window, trying to see like, hey, I want to join in that. And if teachers see that their students are interested in what you're doing, they're going to also have some buy-in. And I really like how you went back to addressing your why, because sometimes as educators, it's important that we do get back to our why to figure out why did we want to get into this field of working with our youngest learners in the first place, right? So thank you for that, Elaine. And thank you for being the brave one to start us off today. So next, I'm going to go ahead and go to Jennifer, because I know, Jennifer, you were talking about making it fun. Can you talk to us about that too?
Well, I just know that really communication and language is all about building relationships. Like that's what it's about. And you want to make things fun so that our littlest ones have a reason to want to have those conversations and communicate. And especially for our little ones that are, potentially struggling, listening to the gals talk, we have those typical developing kids, but then we also have those kids that are going to have some delays in their language and communication, and really trying to tie into, like they said, their interests and making that fun, I think is a place where you really can start to build those strong relationships that you can then jump off from.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And then the next person that I'd like to go to next is Andrew. Andrew, I know you've discussed some strategies that you use with greeting every student in your program. Could you share some of those really fun hand greetings that your school works on and that all of the teachers are on board with, or most of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes back to what Dr. Garcia was saying earlier, when she mentioned, we look at for kids, are there people excited to see the kids when they come to campus? So at scholarship prep, we ensure that every student is greeted when they cross the threshold to the school by an administrator, and then when they are crossing the threshold in their classroom. So we have a menu for our teachers to use. There are handshakes, there are high fives, there are bows. Some do rock, paper, scissors. Some get really creative and have personalized handshakes. But we feel that having that positive greeting every morning, we don't know what our students are going through on the weekends, on the breaks. But if we can be consistent in those positive greetings every single day, that helps us to build relationships.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I really enjoyed when you were telling stories about the different greetings that the teachers were doing with their students and getting really creative with it, because if you're having fun as a teacher, your students are also going to have fun and they're going to have more buy-in because they see that you're excited to do it. And especially as the kids get older, when you get in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, they're not going to see it as something that's too goofy for them to participate in because their teacher, who is an adult, is also doing it as well. Now, I'm going to call on two more panelists before we move on to our second question. And Ellie, I know that you were talking about shifting the mindset. So can you talk a little bit about shifting the mindset when it comes to behavior when you're also trying to establish positive relationships with your students and within your program?
Yeah. First, when we think about just behavior or challenging behaviors that children display, we do want to shift the mindset on what that is, right? I think today we talked about behavior being a form of communication and really having our fresh professionals, our teachers, our educators understand that behavior, even challenging behavior, definitely is a form of communication. And instead of looking at it as maybe a power struggle or maybe as, mischief, right? We really want to understand that this is a form of communication. And challenging behaviors it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? It's a matter of when. And so when we are addressing those challenging behaviors, we want to be really mindful on how we approach the child or the student, right? Talking them through what their behavior means, right? What those feelings are, and how do we properly reintegrate the child after we've had this discussion on, this is what happened today, this is what you did, or this is how you're feeling. Talk to me about it, right? So that the child can still come back into the classroom and into the group feeling safe, right? Not feeling like isolated and not feeling like I was put on display. So being really mindful of that to still maintain a really strong relationship with the child.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you for addressing the topic of creating that safe space for the child so that you're acknowledging that you're acknowledging their feelings so that they do feel acknowledged, and it lets them feel safe and know that, hey, I can come back tomorrow. I'm not going to be scared to come to school the next day because teacher Susie is so upset with me because I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. So on the same topic of feeling safe in the classroom and feeling acknowledged, I would like to go to Miss Rebecca before we go on to the next question, because you do have some really great strategies when it comes to making sure that children are acknowledged by their name and having that access within the classroom. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's what we do since day one. We ask the children, of course, we focus on their name, and then we want to know, are we pronouncing it right? We ask the family how to pronounce the child's name. I want to make sure I say it right. And we want to make sure that every child is saying their name correctly. And we don't want to say, hey, you, hey, bud, hey, pal. We want to use their name because everyone likes to be called by their name. Myself and my co-teacher, we use our names, and the children call us by our names, and we call them by their names. And then that they belong to the classroom. They're not just, hey, you, come over here. We want to make sure we're giving them that title that they were given at birth and respect that.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate that. So I am going to go start us off on the second question. And for the panelists here, I know there's one person in particular that knows I'm going to go to her first second, but I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to let you know now. Lisa, I'm going to be calling on you first. So just so you can get your mind prepared, I don't want to catch you off guard. So for the second question is, how do you ensure your teaching is equitable for all children? For example, How do you utilize and reflect empathy in understanding and responding to children's behavior? And I'd like to call on you, Lisa, if you could go ahead and answer that question for us. Oh, you're muted, Lisa. We want to hear all the wonderful things that you're saying.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I can hear you now.
I think overall, no matter which child it is, we ultimately want to help them calm down, as has been talked about throughout this whole webinar. I have 2.5 pages of notes. It's been awesome. And then we're gonna talk about how they're feeling. I'm going to describe what they see, and maybe get that other child who may have been involved in whatever took place, and get them to come together and ask the other child, what can I do to make you feel better? Are you okay? And then move forward from that, and maybe what they can do to make them feel better is they want to do a handshake, or they want to do a hug if they've given each other permission, or they want to go play together, whatever that may be. So I always tell families and teachers that even though something has happened, we want to still nurture that relationship between those two children, whether it be biting or hitting or pushing or shoving, and then to help the child understand, hey, is it okay if someone hits you, or is it okay if someone pushes you? Well, no. Well, then it's not okay for you to do that to the other child. And then using those strategies will really depend on that child. So doing a lot of individualizing with them as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I know that when we were speaking previously, you talked about having younger students in your class. Sometimes you have 2-year-olds in your class who may not necessarily have the language, how Jennifer was also talking about the language. You mentioned some visual strategies that you use to help support these students. Can you talk about the visuals and how you use them when children are having struggles?
Yeah, so we've started teaching the children using Teaching Pyramid Model Strategy with the Problem Solvers book. And we each have little cards that we carry around. I don't happen to have mine on me, that have some of the solutions. So I think in the webinar, they talked about some of those things. We don't use the traffic light one, but actual pictures of what they can do. I found with the youngest children, they truly need emotional support in that sense. And then they need you to go with them. So we might be able to show them a picture of what possible solutions might be. And they can pretty much tell if someone's sharing, or we need to use the visual timer that we have. We have those all over the place. Or if we need to go tell them to please stop. And then we're going to go with them and support them in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate that you are definitely elevating the need to individualize for each child, because especially in preschool, you may have children as young as 2 all the way up to 5 and possibly almost 6 years old because they've chosen to stay in preschool instead of going to transitional kindergarten. So with acknowledging the feelings and then also talking about language, I think that's a perfect segue to move over to Jennifer, because she also works with the students on, giving them that language. Because you're working with children who have a speech delay, can you also talk about how you provide that language so that the children can learn how to have the language to express their feelings?
Sure. I think that it's super important to model the language for them about how they may be feeling, because they might not even have that background or that baseline to say, like, I'm sad or I'm angry, and really trying to identify the feelings based on the behaviors, I think is important. And we might be wrong. We might be saying that they're sad and maybe they're mad, because the feelings don't always look the same. But I think in that case, it's okay to get it wrong, but just to be working with that student and giving them the language of what they're feeling or what they might be feeling. I think it's super important to have visuals available. I know we utilize a lot of context specific boards that might have a bunch of feelings on them or other words that we as communication partners can be modeling on that, because we know that, again, it was talked about, like when they're in that moment of, you know, they lose when they're in a meltdown, that's not the time where they can tie everything together. But if we can give them some focus on something static that's not moving and be modeling that language, that's another way to get that refocus. And also remembering that as we're looking at you know, really universally designing our preschool classrooms as well, those visuals might also really be useful for another student who you might not have thought they would be useful for. So maybe not even for the kids that don't have the expressive language yet to really say those things, but even some of our kids that probably could say it, but in the moment can't. Don't forget that those are great tools to use with, you know, potentially with all kids.
Thank you, Jennifer, for elevating that. These visuals are not just for one child. They could be beneficial for every student in your classroom. And then, you know, working smarter, not harder. So if you have a teacher that's next door to you that's also wanting to use some of these, share the wealth, share the resources so that your hopefully the whole school is using some resources so that you can go back to building up that classroom community or that school community. So with that being said, I would also like to go to next, Rebecca, I'd like to call on you next because I know that you talked about really acknowledging both of the students' feelings and keeping that equity at the center as well. So if you could please talk to me a little bit about that as well, and so that the group can also hear all those wonderful things that you use within your classroom.
Definitely. What we do is if a child is upset for whatever reason, we'll call them both together if there was a conflict. And then we ask them to share their point of view. So one child will share what happened with them, and we have the other child listen. And then we give the other child a turn to share what happened to them. And then when we ask them, it's like, okay, so this has happened. What solution do you guys want to try? And I know that I have children from 2.9 to 5, like the world, and we sit and wait with them as they come up with a solution that would work for both of them. And so somebody will say whatever will work for them, and so they decide. I just help monitor, and then they decide what their solution is. And like I said before, sometimes the solution is nothing that I would come up with, nothing at all, but that's their solution and it's their problem. And I say, okay, well, go see if it works. If you need more support, come back and I'm here to help you. And so they discuss their problem, they decide their solution, they go see if it works. If it doesn't work, they will, and they do, they come back. If it doesn't work, and we discuss it again. And I always tell them, you know what, we have nothing but time, because that's what they need right now is the time to be heard, to problem solve, and to be able to learn that sometimes their solution isn't going to work, sometimes it is, and giving them the time to go try. I don't give them solutions at all. They have to figure it out, and I'm there supporting them as they figure that out.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I love that you say we've got nothing but time, because as an adult, we all do not feel like we have nothing but time. It feels like we're constantly running against the clock. But those young students in the classroom, they definitely have nothing but time. And if you give them that time that is there for them, they're going to continuously improve. And before I go on to the next person, I was paying attention a little bit to the question and answer. So I'd like to go back to Lisa. The book that you mentioned, people are wanting to know what the name of the book is that you use for those solutions in your classroom. Can you restate that book one more time for us?
So it's through Teaching Pyramid Model. It's going to be from CaliforniaInclusion.org. I'm a problem solver. And they can actually go right to that website, California or CAInclusion.org. And they can download it and print it.
Awesome.
We ordered kits from Discovery Source, I think, is one of the places.
Yes, Discovery Source is a really great tool. I believe there's fees attached to that, but CaliforniaInclusion.org is a free resource. So if you can get on that website, there's so many resources there that you can use within your classroom. And you can also edit them as well. And it looks like Nicole has dropped it in the chat for you all. So thank you, Nicole, for catching that. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing that with us. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm checking the time. I want to make sure that everyone gets their voice heard. So the next thing, I would like to go over to Elaine last before we go on to our next question. Elaine, is there anything else that you would like to add to this question before we move on to question 3?
I like to add that I actually start off with teaching all the school-wide expectations to the children. We are safe, we are kind, we are friendly, we are respectful and responsible. So then through that, it's like a big umbrella. So any behaviors or problems that propped up, it actually goes down and it trickles down. So if there's a child that's fighting, oh, are we being safe? If someone's having a problem with a friend with, saying unkind words, oh, are we being respectful? So it all goes under that big umbrella. So then from there, we teach how to be empathetic, because children, it's always back to the teaching merit. If they don't know, we teach. If they don't understand, we teach. If they don't know what to do when there's a problem, we teach. So definitely empathy has to be taught too.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you so much for adding those insights at the end. And I'm going to come back to you in a second because I have you going next for our third question. So for question 3, we have students arrive in P-3 settings or preschool through 3rd grade settings with a diverse set of strengths, skills, abilities, and needs. What strategies have you used to support all children to address their social emotional needs, remove barriers to learning, and embed equity and inclusivity in the classroom? So Elaine, I know you just spoke, but I want to take it right back to you to start us off on this conversation, because I know you are specifically working on this right now within your classroom. So if you could please, and also if you could also talk about the inclusion piece within your classroom as an inclusion teacher as well.
Sure. So I teach in an inclusion TK setting, and it happened this year that I have a lot of children who are using AAC devices, and I have a child that actually uses sign language to talk. So when we first started, the parents actually sent over little videos of that child doing her sign language her way, because she's still learning the specific American Sign Language. So she's a little adaptive, but then we went over it with some of the students, and when we teach in the classroom, we're starting to teach some sign language in the class. So a lot of the students are being very responsive. And when they are actually having exchanges with that particular student, they're using sign language. And this comes with the community. The parents actually have come up to me and said, outside of school, when they had parties, they noticed that their child is being very included, and that a lot of the students are using sign language with that particular child, and she's being responsive to them and joining into play. So that made my teacher heart melt quite a bit.
Thank you so much, Elaine. I love that you are teaching your classroom, your students, American Sign Language. And I can see in the chat there are tons of hearts coming through. I heard you tell this story before, and it still gave me goosebumps today. And I think that is a perfect segue to go over to Andrew to also talk about the culturally responsive mindset, because you did, Elaine, that is bringing in the culture of the family. So Andrew, can you talk about that for us too as well?
Yeah, it's a great connection. We are working with students from different cultures, different backgrounds, their families, different backgrounds. And we as educators, as professionals, have to be aware of that there are differing levels of comfort with things like voice volume. Some families and cultures are louder than others. It's not a sign of disrespect. That's just a cultural cue for them. Proximity, how close we are in our kids' personal spaces might be a trigger for some kids, but other kids might like that safety. Even eye contact. Some cultures and some schools value eye contact as a sign of respect. And in some cultures, that's a sign of disrespect, looking your elder in the eye. So ensuring that our staff are aware of those cultural mindsets, and knowing that a child may have a coping mechanism that they've established that might be culturally appropriate or appropriate at the home setting, but not at the school. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just might not be the right setting. And so that we as staff are going to give them the appropriate mechanisms at a school setting, but not tell them that their behavior is wrong.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate you stating that, not telling them that their behavior is wrong, because it's important that children understand that their feelings, all the feelings that they are experiencing, doesn't mean that it's something negative. It's just what they are feeling in that moment. And like Rebecca had stated earlier, it's just a moment in time and it's going to pass. And that's something that is really important that we keep at the center. So next, I want to go to Ellie. I know that you were discussing some type of activities to make sure that you're including the cultural piece for the families as well and the children. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I am a very big fan. In fact, we all in our agency are very big fans of project-based learning, because these types of activities or lessons are student and child centered, right? Very often we have settings where we we lead out the lessons, right? Like we give students, let's say, a product, right, or an activity that has kind of like an end result, right? It's like that focus on product versus process. So project-based learning is opposite of that, right? Students have their own strengths, their own cultural traditions, their own way of doing things. So when we provide opportunities and activities that are, again, student-led or child-led and teacher-guided, we give them a spotlight. We give them an ability to lead with those strengths, right? To come in and teach us as educators how they would handle a certain situation, or how they celebrate a particular holiday or celebrate a win. So really, really being intentional and mindful of providing those child-led opportunities.
Thank you so much, Ellie. I love that you talked about child-led opportunities, because what a way to boost these children's confidence. You're letting them lead the way. They're showing their interests. Their interests are being valued, and that's ultimately strengthening the relationship and making them feel safe and loved within the classroom and loved within their school community. So thank you for doing that. It's the process, not the product. As a teacher, I lived by that. I loved going to classrooms and seeing a bunch of different artwork posted that did not look the same. That to me is a teacher that is allowing their children, their students, well, it is their children, it's like their babies, right? Their children to be able to lead and, express their interests. So thank you for elevating that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm checking the time, and I want to value everyone's time, respect everyone's time. So I'd like to go to question 4. And I'm going to kick it off with you, Rebecca, after I say the question. So as educators, we all have our hot buttons, those things that students do that challenge us. It is a shared experience, and it's okay to acknowledge it. I know I have my hot buttons as a teacher and then as a parent as well, because I do have a 4-year-old myself and a 14-year-old, but that's a different story. Back to the topic. Cornell West says, justice is what love looks like in public. When considering what this quote means to you, how have you addressed your own hot buttons to successfully continue supporting all students? Now, I would like to kick us off with Rebecca. If you could go ahead and start off the conversation.
Well, being in this field for over 30 years, there's a lot of times when I'm not in sync with the child. And so I acknowledge that, and I let them know, it's like, you know what, right now I can't talk with you. And I have my co-teacher or my para, step up, and I let them know, you know what, I need a moment, because I may be feeling whatever I'm feeling. I may be feeling angry right now, or I may be feeling sad or disappointed, or, whatever it is. I may be scared, going, oh, what am I going to do next? I share this with them. I share whatever the feeling is, and I tell them I need to step away for a moment. I'm still in the classroom. I may need to turn around for a minute to compose myself, but I'm also mirroring and teaching them it's okay if you in that moment do not want to talk to a friend. You have the right to say, I'm going to turn around for a moment because I'm feeling mad. And we also have emotional charts that we can move, and it's a moment. So the children, they will go and move their thing if they're happy or loved. They'll go move it to angry or sad, because it's that moment in time that we're expressing how we feel. I model for them that if I'm upset, I might turn away. If something feels really wonderful, I'll say, oh my gosh, that's a great thing. I loved seeing you do that. But those other feelings that sometimes people call negative, which they're not, they're just feelings, I'm teaching them how an adult may react to them, and it's okay as a student to react to them.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I love that you are modeling for your classroom that adults have feelings too, and that feelings don't just immediately disappear when you're no longer a child. And as an adult, we're continuously working on our emotional regulation. Now, I am going to end up calling on everyone for this, try to get to everyone for this question, because we're getting pretty close to 5 o'clock. So we're unfortunately not going to be able to get to our final question. So for the second person, I'd like to call on Lisa. Lisa, can you share how you address your hot buttons and still successfully work with the children in your classroom?
Yeah, teaching pyramid model has been key for me to really come to an understanding that the challenge is me and it's not the child, and that I've had to figure out what my hot buttons are and why they're hot buttons, and how I can reframe some of those hot buttons for myself. So if there's a time where I've flipped my lid and have reacted to something that's happened to a particular child, instead of, taking my 3 deep belly breaths and then respond in a calm way, I'll reflect about that. It'll keep me up at night, in the shower in the morning, and then think about, okay, how can I relate to this child? What's a different approach? What's a different way that I can go about to connect with that particular child? That's probably one of the number one things that I've done. And always keeping in mind, as has been said through this whole webinar, is that behavior is communication. And that's all that it is. That has been like the key thing that I've taken from all the TPM training that I've done in the past 4 years, has been that. And that I need to change what I'm doing. I maybe need to change the environment, maybe need to offer more visuals, maybe need to find a different way to relate to that child. So then I need to reframe, and then I need to have fun.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Lisa, for talking about reframing, because reframing into a more positive mindset will change your whole perspective on that behavior that the child was expressing. Now, I was so hopeful to ask everyone a response to this question, but we are right at 5 o'clock, actually 5:01. So I'm going to ask Elaine if you can wrap us up on this question, and then I'll move it over to Sarah.
Great. Piggyback. Teaching Paramount was a game changer for me. I literally changed my practice, my actually philosophy of teaching. I used to be that old school teacher where I'm up here, the students are down here. You need to listen to me because I'm the authority in the classroom. Now, after teaching Pyramid, I have reshifted and reflected on my teaching, which is we're all in this together. We're learning together. And I pick up on where the hot buttons are for me. And like what you were saying, you switch it around, you reframe it. And now I look at it as I have to be more proactive in seeing where the kids are when they are starting to have behavioral issues, and I jump in right away, whether it be whatever time of the day it is, circle time. It could be when it's the busiest time when someone's getting my attention. And when I see it, I stop, and it's a teachable moment. And it helps with more of finding where the behavior is stemming from and stopping it right there and then and finding a solution for it.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that you did have a growth mindset. You started out one way and learned a different way and realized, hey, I need to change something within myself. So unfortunately, we can't get to our last question. I do want to give a huge thank you to all of the panelists. I'm sorry we didn't get to answer every single question, but you have all added so much value to this conversation. There's lots of hearts, there's lots of hand clapping, celebration, little trumpets that are coming through. And I just want to remind us all that based off of everything that I've heard that you were stating and a lot of the feedback that we were getting in the question and answer, everything starts off with relationships, not just the students, but the families too. I'm going to wrap it up right there, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Valentina. That was phenomenal, you all. And it's not just the feedback, the level of questions, the notes my team was taking, truly an effective, valuable presentation by all of you in discussion. So the content was so useful that I wish I could take each of you and write a whole book and expand on what you're doing and really capture videos of it. Discussing such a critical topic with best practices, strategies to support practitioners with behaviors that challenge them, and how we best support all our littles, whether they be in a preschool program, a family childcare program, or in one of our TK, first, second, or third classrooms. All of them need that relationship-based focus that really enhances the assets from both the teachers, the educators, and the children. So thank you, participants who made time in such a busy schedule to attend this webinar and hear its content. Thank you to our presenters, Catherine, Alida, and our panelists, Eliana, Jennifer, Andrew, Rebecca, Lisa, and Elaine. Thank you so much for what you brought today. And for my team, who I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't have such a phenomenal team. Thank you, Shanna, for your leadership and vision. Valentina, for your really deeply effective facilitation and how you crafted this agenda. Steve, for your leadership, and the team behind the curtain, Beth, Nadia, Jennifer, Nicole, Stephen, Sarah, and Teresa. I might have forgotten somebody, so thank you all. Leaving you with a quote from Pam Leo. You can't teach children to behave better by making them feel worse. You can't teach children, when children feel better, they behave better. So circling back to our why from the very beginning, because relationships matter. Because supporting our children to feel heard, valuable, and supported matters. Have a great evening, everyone.